Hey everyone, this is Alan Redman with Streamline Landlord Service. In this video, we're going to talk about configuring monthly rent payments with the PAD feature. So we can do monthly rent payments. So this is a payment that happens every month, and you can set up the the day of the month. And we can also schedule one-time transactions. So I don't know, maybe you need to bill your tenant for something specific, or you're going to use this feature to, pull the, what's the word I'm looking for, the damage deposit, something like that. That's all doable with this. So once we're at this point, the tenant has given you permission to pull rent from their bank account, and now all we have to do is set it up. So first things first, we can see that we've got John Doe here, and under this action column, we've got tenant details. So I'll show you that first. This just shows, here's his name, here's the banking information we're using. Okay. Next, we have monthly rent. So select a rental agreement you want this to pertain to. Usually there's only one thing in that list, but let's say he was renting one unit and then he's going to move to another one. There might be an overlapping month, so that would be the only time you'd really have a couple there. But in practice, there's usually only one. So we can see the monthly rent defaults to the value of the maximum value of the rental agreement. So on the rental agreement, we had put that this person is paying $1,000 per month. The number can be lower than 1,000, but it can only be as much as 1,000. If you want to raise the rent, you have to go back over into rental agreements, edit the rental agreement to change this to say 2,000, right? Or whatever the rent happens to be. So let's go back in here, monthly rent. Let's select this rental agreement, $1,000. The receiving bank account, now we'll talk about this in the next video, but you can have multiple bank accounts that money's going to. If you've got 15 different properties and you want 15 different bank accounts, that's no problem. It's all doable. But, in this drop-down list, you're going to be selecting which one it is. We only have one at the moment, but I'll show you more later. And the start date. The start date defaults to the first of the next month, but it's the 23rd right now. If I wanted it to start, let's say, maybe I want it on the 30th, right? That's totally doable as well. And then we can just go create monthly payment. There, now the monthly payment is scheduled. So as of this point, as soon as you click that, that monthly rent is going to come out of the bank account of your tenant, and it's going to go into your bank account on the 1st of each month. Now, there's a few important things to note here. If you're going to update this number, like let's say the rent gets increased from 1,000 to 1,100, and you increase this here, you can increase this number and then click update. That will update the amount. But all changes that happen have to happen before 4 p.m. This is Central Standard Time, so I'm in Winnipeg. It's the time zone here. They have to happen before 4 p.m. the business day before. If that's not the case, then your updates will take place, but they won't take place until next month, okay? That's also true for canceling transactions. If you need to cancel a transaction and it's for tomorrow, please make sure you do it before 4 p.m. The reason why is because everything at 4 p.m. gets sent over to the bank, and the bank schedules it for execution the next day. It's still possible to cancel things after 4 p.m. You'll have to reach out to us directly to do that, and there will be a separate cost for that. But just so you know, it is certainly possible, but just not preferable. So try and do this before 4 p.m. So if you need to update the rent, you can do it here. If you need to cancel the monthly rent payments, just click delete. And that's all there really is to it. Monthly rent is set up now. You can see we've got monthly rent payments is 1 right now. Next, we have one-time transactions. So we've got 0 right now. Let's go into click action, then click one-time transactions. Again, select the rental agreement this pertains to, so it's the address from start and end date here. The receiving bank account, the amount, we'll just say 123 bucks. Let's make the transaction date tomorrow. Note, I'm just going to call this test, or less better name, let's go damage deposit, schedule transaction, and there you go. We've got one-time transaction scheduled to go to the primary bank account tomorrow, June 24th, for the amount of $123. You can delete that if you want. You can't update one-time transactions, but you can delete them. And again, it's the same rule about 4 p.m. The transaction is going to happen tomorrow at 4 p.m. So if you need to cancel that, please it's not going to happen tomorrow at 4 p.m. It's going to happen tomorrow at about noon, actually, is the real time. But if you need to cancel that, please cancel it today at 4 p.m. at the latest. Now that's business days. So if you've got a payment coming out on a Monday and today's Friday, you can't update that on Saturday. It's got to be before 4 p.m. the business day before. And again, this is just a kind of a constraint or reality of dealing with banking in the real world, right? So, just keep that in mind, but that's all you really need to do. And if you add more one-time transactions, they'll just show up under here. So let's go ahead and click close. Now we can see we've got one payment, monthly rent payment, and one-time transaction. Now I'm going to go over to the tenant's email account so we can see that there are two emails here actually. There's a new transaction scheduled. So the first one, let's just load these images here. The first one is the monthly rent of $1,000, so the tenant gets notified that, yep, this has been set up for them. Then there's also, let's click load here. There's also the $123 one-time transaction. So they get a notification when the transaction is set up, but they'll also get a notification the day before the payment takes place. So they'll get a reminder saying, hey, by the way, don't forget, next business day, we're going to be taking out this much for your rent. Or tomorrow, we're going to be taking out this much for your damage deposit, for instance. So the tenant gets those reminders as well. Now, there's not a lot really to do because once you've got this stuff set up, and this is our whole goal with Streamline, is to put your business on autopilot as much as possible. Now that rent's set up, just watch the checks come in, and that's really about it, right? We can see upcoming transactions. So this is all the transactions that have been scheduled that are upcoming. This start and end date defaults to the next 30 days. So we can see the start date is June 23rd, which is today, and the end date is July 23rd. If I change this to after August 1st and go search, then we can see the payment for August 1st shows up as well. So we can see John Doe for this address going into this destination bank account for this much money is happening on this date. We've got a comment, and then we've got monthly rent here. This is a link. This just takes you over to the rental agreement in case you want to see the details of the particular rental agreement that this pertains to. But that's about it. You can also see your previous transactions here as well. So that'll just show you what's happening and what the current status of a transaction is. Now, just one thing to note, because we're using pre-authorized debit, this doesn't go quite as fast as e-transfer. There is a 5 business day processing time. That's just the case with pre-authorized debit. That's not really an us thing. That's more of a banking rule. But yeah, just so you're aware of it, don't schedule your mortgage payment to come out the very next day. It's always best to put a few business days in between there, at least 5. So that's everything with this feature. In the next video, we're going to talk about managing bank accounts.